Welcome back to Strength Personified, the podcast. My name is Brittany Cooley. You can call me Britt. And welcome to episode 2. First of all, I have to shout out everyone and thank everyone for subscribing and sharing this and rating me on Apple and Spotify and anywhere you're listening to this 5 stars. You guys are amazing. I just found out this morning I got an email from Apple saying I was number 244 and then I bumped to 248. And out of 800,000 podcasts online, that's pretty fucking cool. So thank you, with just one episode, mind you. So that's awesome. I appreciate the openness and the welcoming of my raw, real shit that I've been through. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So a lot of people are appalled at how I share and what I share and when I share it, because they are just like, wow, you're literally stripping online, like internal, like emotionally, like I'm emotionally running around naked online. And when you go through things like I've gone through, and when you have chosen to end your life and then live through it, you have a different lens on life. And I think that's the reason why I created this podcast. That's what I want this podcast to be about, is to, shifting paradigms or smashing the paradigm, right? And creating whatever you want despite what you've been through. And that's truthfully what I just have been doing since 2012, since my attempt that I talked about in the first episode. In this episode, I just kind of want to talk about the past 10 years. So my second book, Strength Personified, A Personal Story of Heartache to Healing, is coming out October 31st. So mark your calendars. But those of you who have been just like, how can you share all this stuff? What has it been like the past 10 years after your attempt? That's really when the real work started in my life. All of the hard things that I went through in my childhood are terrible and traumatic and whatever, but I had to slowly unpack all of that shit over the last 10 years, and I'm not done, right? Like, I am still a work in progress, and I pride myself on being imperfect and being real and telling you when I fuck up and the mistakes I've made, in hopes to help people not make the same mistakes, right? Like, I'm trying to help people prevent attempting suicide or making shitty financial decisions that get their car repossessed. Like, I'm going to talk about all of that happened, and it's all, I just really had to go back to the center of where all my pain started and just kind of unpack it. It's just digging very deep roots out of the ground so I can get this tree uprooted and I can plant a new one, right? And the biggest part of my next book is the post-attempt Britt, right? Like what I did on July 18th, 2012, moving forward. Obviously I had to stay in psych for 6 days. I was discharged. I did an intensive outpatient therapy program for 2 weeks. And then I was just like, I learned coping skills. I learned tools and resources. And that's really when I got into self-help and self-improvement. And then in 2014, I found Beachbody. I found Shaun T. He was like this motivational, fit motherfucker that I just fell in love with over the TV, doing my DVD home workout that we ordered in the mail. And I really started to absorb all of his messages through his workouts. Like, I didn't listen to anything that he had done or heard him speak yet, but I was like, this guy is like really motivational, and this is like really helping me feel better. And this was before I even knew what personal development or self-help was. I had no idea who Lewis Howes was. I had no idea that self-help was even a thing. I had never read a single book in my life that was, anything to do with self-help. I just felt really, really good about what I was feeling through Shaun T. And then I went to see him live in Vernon, New Jersey. And I was surrounded by this huge community of people. I had no idea who they were. We were all there to work out, get our asses kicked by this insanity workout, right? And everyone was so positive and supportive. And I'd never been in such an environment, right? I'd never been immersed in people just being so positive and healthy and happy. And everyone was so nice to me. And I didn't know anyone there. I went by myself. And that's really when my eyes opened to say, like, I want to feel what these people feel. I want to do what Shaun T does in a different way, in my own way. Like, I need to channel all of this angst and depression and trauma into something good. And that's kind of when I started rolling with this. Not too long after that, I bought the domain BrittanyCooley.com. I launched my website with a very short, brief description of my story. It was a paragraph or two. It wasn't anything detailed like I share in the book. It's nothing detailed like I told you about in the last podcast, in my first one. I just, briefly I found Beachbody, I became a Beachbody coach, and it just changed my life, and I want to help so many people, and that's basically what I left it at. And I attempted suicide, and I woke up, and, my life has changed, whatever. I was so nervous, because I initially never intended on telling the story to anyone. I was like, I don't want anyone to know how fucked up I am, right? Like, I was ashamed, because mental health still had a huge stigma. It still does today. It's much better, but still, like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you belong in a hospital. Oh, you were hospitalized. Like, that is a stigma and a stamp I did not want on my forehead. Very few of my friends knew. My immediate family members knew, and my girlfriend at the time, Jenny, knew, but no one else knew, and I wanted to keep it that way. I was like, I am not ever going to fucking tell anybody, because I don't want anyone to look at me like I'm damaged or broken or unstable. And so many people were at the time that were close to me, because they were worried about me, especially directly after my attempt. Like, my dad was like, are you doing okay? Are you taking your meds? Like, everyone was kind of like walking around on eggshells. Like, people wouldn't get kitchen knives out in front of me. People would like make sure I didn't go in I remember specifically, we're in a store, and there was all kinds of like planting tools, and there was this big like shiv thing that you like dig holes in the ground with if you're a gardener. I don't know what they're called. Clearly, I'm not a gardener. Don't know anything about landscaping, and I don't intend on learning it. I have a black thumb. But, like people would like pull me away. Like my friends would be like, oh, let's not go down this aisle. Let's go down that aisle. It's like, I can walk down I'm not... it was very hard for me to transition into this, like, oh, Brittany's great. She does awesome shit, to being this person like people were wincing around because they were worried about. I didn't want to be that person. So I was like, if we move away, we move to New Jersey, and I can start over. Nobody will know my story, and I can have a fresh start. Well, then I was on a team call one night, and this was in 2014. This was right before I launched my blog, sharing my story for the first time with the world, the internet. I was on a call talking about, you have a story to share. Your story is how you relate to people. This is how you can truly transform the world. Use your pain and make it into something relatable. And I just, it made me sick. I was like, I can't do it. I'm not going to tell the whole story. Like, I can tell about my childhood. That's fine. But like, I'm never going to tell anybody I impaled myself. Like, I would never do that, because nobody's ever going to take me seriously ever again. But I was like, it was just like, I was hanging. It was like ringing in my ears that whole night. And I remember waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I got up. I opened out my big, thick, pink cased Dell laptop. Anybody remember those? And I opened it up, and I was like, there's got to be somebody else that has survived a suicide attempt that maybe wrote about it somewhere. Like, I got to search a blog or something. And that's when I found Kevin Hines. And if you don't know who Kevin Hines is, he's the guy who paved the way, one of them, for me to share my story for the first time. And I was like, wow, if this grown man can talk about jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge and living with bipolar disorder and needing medication and hearing hallucinations and hearing voices, and he's doing all this great work. He used his mess as his message, and now he's changing the world, and he's on CNN. Like, fuck. And it clicked. I was like, I need to do that too with my story, because how many people could benefit from hearing my story? But it still made me sick. I'm like, I've got my family on here. I've got my friends on here. This is crazy. I can't do that. And Facebook wasn't even a huge thing at the time. Like, it was, some people had it, some people didn't. So it was 2014. So, it had come out in 2007, but it wasn't like it is now, right? There was no algorithm, it was nothing like that. And there was no ads or business pages or anything like that. So, and I had maybe 300 friends, most of which I added drunk in college at parties. I had 300 friends on Facebook, and I had 127 Instagram followers. And I was like, all right. Well, and Instagram had just come out too, so many people didn't have Instagram at the time. And I was like, oh. So I bought BrittanyCooley.com, and I taught myself how to make a basic landing page for a website. It was, and then I was like, this is too hard. So I farmed it out. I paid somebody $250 to create my website in pink and purple and the colors that I wanted, and crowns, because that was my thing at the time, right? Because I was like a warrior. I was a regal warrior. That was and then it became the Warrior Republic was my Beachbody team. Any Warrior Republic members, past members, I love you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be your coach. But so I was so nervous. I typed it out and I hit publish, but nobody knew there was even a BrittanyCooley.com. So I was like, it's fine. Nobody's going to see it. But then I started to count down to force myself to do it. So I publicly said, I'm sharing a story on this day. And I did 10 days, 9 days, 8 days, 7 days. I did these countdowns with these little graphics because that's when I became obsessed with like graphic design and social media marketing and stuff like that. So I had all these terrible, mind you, if you go scroll all the way back, and I think I have some of them on my phone still. If you scroll all the way back through my Facebook, you'll see like the terrible graphics I did, but they were really good at the time for me, and they were cool, you know. I've come such a long way, guys, on offline and online. Okay. And I was like, and I had no audience again. I had like 325 friends. Half of them were drunk ads at college, and 127 Instagram followers or something. It was under 200. I know that. And I was like, okay, well, I hit publish on my website, and then I just posted the link the day I, said I was going to. I was like, here's my story. And I legitimately did not think that anybody would click on it and read it. Because I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm a nobody. Nobody knows my story. I don't want anyone to know my story. I don't want people to think I'm fucking crazy. You know what I mean? So I just like clicked publish, and I clicked post, and with the link to my website, my blog, and I closed the app. I closed Facebook, and that was before it was on your phone, right? I don't believe it was on your phone yet. I think it was still on the computer. If it was, it wasn't very good on your phone. And so, oh, and there's Brutus. And then like later I went to check, and I had all of these messages. Like I had 12 messages in my inbox, and that was a lot. Like that's nothing now. I have 100 every day that I have to go through, which I'm very grateful for. And please never feel like you're bothering me when you message me. If I don't get to you, I will get to you. It's just the volume is a little nuts right now. And I appreciate that. I welcome it. But I had dozens and dozens and dozens of people eventually over the course of the next week reach out to me and tell me, they experienced something similar, and they are so glad they shared my story because it helped them feel like they weren't alone. And that was when the fire lit so bright and so fierce in me. And I knew that I had to really share it with the world. And then I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to write a book. So that was 2014. My book did not come out in 2018. But I continued to share my story. I continued to speak. I got my first speaking engagement. It was through a Beachbody event in 2016. And I spoke in front of like 2,500 coaches. And I was, peeing my pants because I was in the top coaches downline, Melanie Mitro, if you know her. Love you, Melanie. I know you're probably not listening to this, but if you ever listen to this, I love you. And you've taught me so much. And she gave me the opportunity to speak, and she's like, you have 6 minutes. And I was like, 6 minutes? Oh my God, I can talk right now I've already been talking for 13 minutes and I'm not even halfway done, right? So Melanie set me up and gave me the ability to share my story. And because at that point I had lost like 70 pounds with Beachbody programs. And I was just like, people, she was just like, your story is amazing. I spoke on her team call, I think once, just talking about how I've shared, because I, instantly did pretty well with Beachbody. I hit Success Club. Ended up being a Success Club 10 All-Star legend before I left the company and all that. Like I hit all the numbers and the accolades. I never got to elite, which I always wanted to, but I've let that go since then. I just really wanted the fucking jacket, I really wanted a jacket, but now it's cool because I have my own jackets coming, like with my name and my logo on it. So that's fucking full circle and cool. But anyway, do it for the merch. I love merch. So that's really when my social media started to blow up. Like people were just adding me. I had, I went from like 1,500 friends to 3,500 friends. And now I'm like nearly maxed out on my profile. My Instagram is now, I started with when I started really like marketing and pushing Instagram, I got to like 300 followers, and now I'm at, 12,600 something followers, almost 13,000. And it blows my mind that people are still like hanging on listening to me, because the last 10 years, and that's really what I wanted to circle back to, like that was just the beginning. And at that point I was like, oh, by the time I'm 30, which I'm 33 now. So I was like, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be a millionaire, and I'm going to be traveling in private jets and speaking and doing all this stuff and having a New York Times bestselling book. And I was just like dead set on it. And then I had my second downfall. Now, I did not attempt suicide again or self-harm again, not with like physical like emotional, like I definitely emotionally ate my feelings. I emotionally drank my feelings and whatever. But I made some really bad choices, and I ended up like, just like my mom in Florida, I was like destitute. I decided to quit Beachbody. I was going to go do a wine company because, the grass was greener. I have the grass was greener syndrome, right? I wasn't an elite coach yet. I was working my ass off, and I still wasn't there, and I was just frustrated, and I felt like it was a big popularity contest. I felt like, it just depended on who was prettier and who was more popular, and it was very cliquey, like Mean Girl, high school-y. Sorry, it's just the truth. It became very, very not my jam anymore. I felt like I was pushing myself inside of a box I didn't belong in. And you can be yourself and be a coach and be successful. There are many of them. I'm not saying, but this was my experience, okay? And I just felt so out of place. I felt like I was never good enough. And I was just like, fuck this. I gave up. Like, I busted my ass, hit Success Club 10 plus every month, and I did it. And I just felt like so imprisoned by it. And deep down, I always knew that Beachbody was not going to be my end all be all. I knew that. I absolutely knew that. But I really wanted it to be, even though I knew that like I had greater things, better things lie ahead than those that leave behind. However, choosing a wine business was not an option, was not the correct choice because I had a very severe drinking problem and just emotional drinking. Because, there's people that can have like 2 drinks and be fine. And there's people that need like 12 drinks. And I was that person that needed 12 drinks. Like, I couldn't have 1, I needed 6. Yes, I am aware that is alcoholism. I've since then made a lot of progress, but that's what I was living. I was single, I was living it up in New Jersey, and I was just like, fuck it all. And slowly but surely, I stopped doing workouts. Like I used to work out twice a day, and then I went to 1 workout a day. And then I worked out every other day. And then I was like, oh, I used to have 1 cheat meal a week, and I started having 3 cheat meals. And then every meal was a cheat meal. And I just said, fuck it all, because I was very discouraged. And I allowed social influences to influence me. I was very malleable clay at the time. And I gave up on super badass Britt. And I'm like, no, you know what? I just want to be fat and happy. And that really led to complete destruction. So a lot of the journey of the last 10 years has been a lot of painful lessons. You don't just survive, at least this is my experience. You don't just survive a suicide attempt and then wake up and you're like, okay, I'm going to fix my life. And then like in 3 years, it's fine. Like, no, no, and because I have authority issues and because I struggle with being coached, right? I really just did the opposite of everything I knew I should do because I just have this rebellious spirit, and I always have. And it really landed me in a really shitty place. And then I ended up, and long story short, I tell all of this in the book, but then long story short, I end up in 2018 in August. I had to move back to my hometown, and I was devastated. I was devastated to move back here. I was like, I fucking hate that place. It's a black hole. It will eat me alive. I will never dig myself out of this. Nobody feels like I do there. I feel like a fucking black sheep in my family. I feel like nobody understands what I'm trying to do. Nobody believes in my vision. Everyone thinks that I'm just full of myself and I just want attention. If I go back there, I'm going to die because I'm not going to be able to thrive. And that, and I was so depressed. I was so lost, and I just shut off. I shut off. My book came out, and it did well. Like, I got really good ratings and I got some sales, but it wasn't bestseller material, and I got a lot of good feedback, but I also got a lot of negative, nasty feedback, because when you are a personality online, when you're an influencer, and I'm saying this with just transparency, like, I'm not saying I'm a big deal or famous or an influencer, but I have a big following. A lot of people follow my shit, whether you just want to be in the drama, you want the tea, or you want to be a troll, or you genuinely support me and you love me. But there's all kinds. It's a big mix. I've got a big cultural melting pot that follows me, right? And it's hard because I felt like everyone was just watching me, waiting me for, make the monkey dance, make the puppet dance, do something. And it was just like, I was just so fucking burnt out and beat up and broken again. I felt like I was broken. I was bruised. I wasn't broken. But I was just like, I fucking quit. I fucking quit this shit. I'm going offline. And I did. I went offline for months. I'd post here and there, but just not much. I didn't post anything on Instagram for months. I just gave up. I was like, clearly this is not meant for me. I wasn't an overnight success, which there's no such thing as an overnight success or a break. Like, it's a lot of little breaks that lead to a big break. Or just, eventually you turn around, you look, and you're like, wow, I have everything I ever wanted, which is me right now. I didn't think it was going to take 10 years, but it did. And I'm glad it did, because I wasn't ready then, right? But moving home was really hard for me because I felt like such an outcast already. And I lost friends that had meant the world to me. I had a really, really, really bad friend breakup. And, I think friend breakups are worse than real actual breakups. I had more pain from my friend breakups than I did with my last marriage ending, because I loved these people so deeply and it just went so bad so fast. And I made some very bad decisions. And it really fucking blew up in my face really bad. And I was spiraling out of control. And I hurt people that I didn't mean to. And I was hurt in return. I was just, it wasn't one-sided, but it's not like I didn't play a part at all. I did, because I just got so wrapped up in what I felt I should have at the time, and I didn't. But I wasn't there yet. I didn't deserve it yet, right? So it was really hard for me, and it was a really dark place. And then I talk about meeting Blythe Jones at Jones Diner. Hey, Blythe. And she kind of relit my fire just a little bit. Like, she started to spark. She gave me a reason, a purpose. She's like, well, I want to have a book signing for the diner. I was like, really? Why? Like, I knew the woman. We've been Facebook friends for a while since I dated Jenny. But, I never seen her in person. I hadn't been to the diner since she had taken over ownership of it. So, I was like, why does this woman want to help me? Like, what the fuck? And then I ended up, she needed a dishwasher one day. She was short. And I was like, I'll wash her dishes, because I didn't have a job, right? I had no job, and I lost my businesses, and I was a fucking failure. I felt like such a fucking failure living back in my dad's basement, 30 years old, big capital F failure, right? And she was like, oh, honey, you don't have to wash my dishes. And I was like, no, I need something to do. Like, just kidding. I don't know. I don't care. Just teach me what to do and I'll do it. If you want me to clean your floors or do your dishes, whatever. So then I did the dishes the next day. And then she's like, well, do you want to learn how to waitress? And I was like, no, I would never want to do food service in my life. And she's like, well, I think you'd be good at it. And I was like, I can't even remember my fucking name half the time. Like, there's no way I can be a waitress. And she gave me the opportunity to be a waitress, and I had the best fucking time. Every day I pray some weekends that she messages me and she asked me to come work because she's short, because it was so much fun. I loved it. Stressful as fuck, but so much fun. All you have to do is take people's orders and bring them food and fill their drinks, and they give you money. That's great. I loved it. I had such a good time, and it really just kind of led to me then getting my job at the hospital, which, by the way, I was hospitalized in 10 years ago. So I ended up being a therapeutic case manager for the Robert Packer Hospital Behavioral Science Center. After being a patient there, and at this point, it was 7 years prior, I ended up being a part of the lead treatment team of that fucking facility. And that's when I was like, I made it. This is it. This was my purpose and calling. The same facility my mom was hospitalized in, the same facility I was, and I was a member of the fucking treatment team. And every single day, I loved that job so much. And I was so devastated when I had to leave it. I didn't want to, but I'm glad I did, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I would not have a podcast right now. So in hindsight, it's fine. But I was so devastated to leave that job, because I feel like such a part of me is within those walls. I mean, and the people that I met there, my coworkers there, we were all a family. And just to have the ability to have a voice in regards to a patient who's struggling with their mental health, and have a choice in their treatment and a voice in helping them, set up their aftercare and have a good plan moving forward, to seeing them go from their lights out to having hope again, to be able to run family therapy sessions, to be able to have coordination meetings where I was the facilitator. It was crazy. Every day I sat down in one of those meetings with the psychiatrist and all the managers and everybody, and they would look at me and they asked me what I thought they should do. And they would listen to me. The psychiatrist listened to me, asked me what I thought. And I'm like, dude, you went to medical school. You were the medical chairman and you want my opinion? And he took it. It was the best feeling because I feel like there truly is not a better person to work in those kind of facilities other than the people who know what it's like to be in one and know what people need, right? Because it's easy. Anybody can go to school and get a degree and do, whatever. But if you don't have the actual lived experience, it's so hard to be able to relate and to even understand. You know what you're told, you know what you're taught in school, and you know what you're supposed to do. But there's that lack of connection with the patient, right? And I could connect with these people. And it was the most satisfying, fulfilling thing that I've ever done. I mean, I love what I'm doing now. I'm not saying that. It's in a different way. But I really felt like I fulfilled a purpose in that building. And if I had never broken up with my friends and moved back home into my dad's basement, I would have never had that opportunity. And I wouldn't have the opportunities, and I wouldn't have my daughter. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet my husband, ex-husband. June 10th, we were officially divorced. Yay! I'll get into that some other podcast. It's not the tea this time. And I wouldn't have my daughter. If I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have my daughter. If I cut him off when I had realized he was kind of a shitbag, I wouldn't have my perfect daughter, and I wouldn't have met Jameson and Lisa Reeves, and I wouldn't have this fucking job. So this podcast is just kind of lead you through the last 10 years a little bit, but I'm going to end it short because I want you to know that if you're struggling somewhere right now, I get it. But the universe has your back. Like God, whatever you believe in, whatever higher entity you believe in, it has a plan for you. Don't fight it. If something's going really chaotic in your life, it's because you need to do a shift. You need to shift the paradigm. You need to shatter the paradigm, right? You need to move into a different frequency. So if things suck right now for you, it's because you're meant to be somewhere else. And things blew up in New Jersey. They blew up in Florida. They blew up in New Jersey. And I got my ass carted back here. But it was for a reason, right? Because I'm sitting here at my desk with double fucking monitors and I'm working on a program that I didn't develop because I know nothing about financial planning. I'm very bad at that, but I'm working on it. That's like my next goal. But I'm creating and designing templates for an online academy that I just developed 3 months ago. That wasn't even a thing. It was, but it was not being worked on at the time. So I'm saying all of that to tell you that things fall apart to fall together. And that is, I have been living proof of that. In my next book, when it comes out and on Halloween and everyone can read it, you'll see, it has not been from tragedy to triumph. And then I kind of went back through some more tragedy. It wasn't suicide and it wasn't death or, anything like that. But it was still a lot of tragedy. I had my heart smashed into 9,000 pieces. And it all stems back to the lack of self-love I had and self-worth. I didn't value myself, so how could anybody else, right? I didn't put myself first. I put myself on the back burner. So I was treated as such, and I burned myself out, much like my mom did probably. So I had to learn all these painful lessons and roll down these fucking hills and get trampled on again and again and again to finally get to the point where I found the root of the problem. And it was me, but it was my lack of love for me. Yeah, I know. I'm fucked up. I totally get that. And I own it. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But I really deeply hated myself my whole life because of just what I'd been through. And it's what if I could change that? What if I could shift that into something that was love? Because, they say, or whoever said this, if you don't love yourself, nobody else can. And that's the fucking truth. I attracted all of the chaos into my life because I was constantly preparing for the worst instead of hoping for the best. Thoughts become things. And, I found out about the law of attraction and all of that, and love languages and how to speak to people and, learn how to have hard conversations, but also just come from the fact that I'm very confident in myself and what I have to offer. Yeah, I'm fucked up for sure. But man, I have a lot of awesome qualities that make up for it. And like I said in the last podcast, we're not broken, we're bruised. But that's there's not one person on this earth that isn't. right? And if I had had a perfect fairy tale childhood like I was set out to in the beginning, I wouldn't be here today. I would be some spoiled fucking trust fund brat, I guarantee it, driving a fucking BMW that my mommy bought me, not having any kind of course of enlightenment or anything. I guarantee you that would be my life. And while the financial freedom and the fancy things sound nice right now, because I'm a single mom and I'm working my ass off, and sometimes I have $10 on my bank account at the end of the month, but you know what? I fucking did it and all my bills are paid, and that's the first time ever. You know, my kid has everything she ever wanted and we have food in the fridge. You know what I mean? Like, I have come a very long way and I have a lot. And I'm really grateful for everything that fell apart in my life. Literally everything. Because I've never been more stable, more sound, more content, more at peace now than I ever have been in my whole life. So this podcast is going to be all about using your struggles to build your strengths and looking at the silver lining, because there always is one. Like, none of us are going to make it out alive. Like, this life, like, we are, like, newsflash, we are all going to die. Like, there's not one of us that's going to make it. Okay? So that's a very morbid fact. But when you think of it that way and you wake up, you want to live each day like it's your last. I'm not talking going out and blackout drunk and partying. I'm talking about doing the things that you want to do even though you're scared. Go tell that person that you love them. Go fucking start that podcast. I'm actually going to do a podcast on how to make a podcast because it's actually really easy. Brutus could do it. My fucking dog could make a podcast. This is not hard, okay? Like, make the podcast, write the book, tell the person you love them, move to the other side of the country. Like, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And you have the ability to change your life, just like I have. You hold the power. You hold the pen to your story. And that's really what I want this podcast to be about. I want it to be moving forward, helping people move through their shit and their trauma, and taking care of the shit they need to take care of so they can live their best life every day. Because I might wake up tomorrow. I might not wake up tomorrow. I mean, I'm hoping I do. I'm likely going to. But we never know. So stop holding yourself back. Stop putting yourself in a box. Stop hiding your feelings and hiding under a rock. Dude, do you. Stop staying in that shitty relationship you know you need to leave. Fucking leave. Like, I'm telling you right now. If you know, you know. You don't need me to tell you. Because I know. I am no relationship guru, but I am a guru of bad ones. And I will tell you all the bad things. But you know, like, it's too short. It's too precious. And we have too much time that we spend so much time worrying and thinking about what other people are thinking about us, and you know, worrying about the 5 pounds we gained, or, you know, do something about it. Fucking execute. Go do something about it. Go fucking for a walk right now. If you're listening to this and you're like, I gained 10 pounds, go for a fucking walk. Guess what? I gained 20 pounds since I lost my 100. Yeah. It's not good. But I'm not bitching about it. I'm doing something about it. Now I'm incorporating a lot more exercise. I've got my shit back together with my financial, my fat adaptation program, and I'm fucking doing it again. But like, stop sitting in your cycle of suck and just get out of it. Because you can. You don't have to deal with anything you don't want to. You don't have to be what anybody tells you have to be. You can do whatever you want. You need to do whatever makes you happy. And I will never not stand by that. Because I know what it's like to lay on that basement floor and not want to get up. I know what it's like to literally take your own life. I didn't succeed, obviously. This is not the ghost of Brittany's past talking to you. But thank God, right? But nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to come save you. You have to save yourself. And I want you to know that you can. And you should start right now. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2. I hope you leave me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm going to be cranking out 2 to 3 episodes a week. So just stay tuned and stay strong. Know that you are not alone. You matter. I love you. I'll see you next time.